Welcome to my breakout session. I'm Chris DeFraia.
Yep.
And, I'm going to talk a little bit about video lectures. And it's not really going to be, I'm not going to lecture you guys per se. This is, I think, going to be more you guys telling me what you want to do and me telling you guys, the best way that you can go about that, which will definitely differ among all of you. But I'll start by just sort of introducing myself. I'm a genetics professor at Fair State University, and I teach genetics from lower level non-majors classes all the way up to our capstone class, which is basically a scientific journal club on steroids. And, I sort of have spent the last year or two learning the basics of video production for the purpose of flipping my classroom. So I was kind of doing this before COVID hit. And what I was doing, and I was actually trying to share my iPad with you guys. It doesn't look like it's going to work, just to show you what I've been working on, but it's not essential. I've been producing videos to take the place of my lectures, and then I'd rather focus more on problem solving during class. So I'm sort of doing this for purposes of doing a flipped classroom, and at the same time building a public open source course for everyone on genetics. So anyway, I sort of know the basics of video production, but I'm sort of a teacher first. So I'm not a professional, video editor or anything like that. So what I want to do here, I think, is first determine what you guys want to do, assuming that classes will go online for the fall. So please, anybody, feel free to jump in. And I'm sort of operating under the assumption that most of you want to offer the version of your classes that you're already doing in an online format. So I'm assuming that you don't have like tons of time to write scripts and storyboards and have high video production value and things like that. So I'm going to try to teach you how to do this quickly and with a minimum of expertise. So if I could just ask the room for a few people to speak up and just give me an idea of what you want to do. Oh, and feel free to chat as well. Okay, and I'll give you guys a minute or two to type in your questions and what you'd like to learn to do. So thanks, Chris, for the question. Thanks, Tom. Okay, these are all excellent questions. It would take me like 3 hours to answer them all thoroughly, at least. So I'm going to have to do some triaging here. Let me see if I can share my screen and show you one of my videos, and I think that will address some of your questions. I'm trying to actually share my screen through an iPad, but let's see if this will work. Give me a moment, please. Okay. Okay, can you all see a white screen? Cool, thanks Dave, got it. Okay, cool. All right, well, I'm just gonna show you, and this is really the very first one I made, so it's, doesn't have quite the production value as is my usual ones. Now you can see that this one's 20 minutes long. I've actually broken this up into videos later on, but I'm just gonna let it play for a minute just so you guys can get a flavor of what I do and how I approach making videos. Oh, and as I said before, I'm a genetics teacher, so this is actually like sort of chapter 1 introduction.
And eukaryotes are organized.
Oh, and I should mention that this is the raw video. It hasn't been edited for, to take out like, white noise or pauses or anything like that. So just keep that in mind.
The vast majority of DNA in prokaryotes is in one chromosome. In the cell, this DNA is coiled. But if we uncoil it and look at it under a microscope, we see that its shape is circular. Smaller chromosomes called plasmids, sometimes present in many copies, may also be present. This smaller DNA molecule in the micrograph is a plasmid.
I think someone has their audio on. I'm hearing some background, so would you mind muting that?
While prokaryotes have one circular chromosome, eukaryotes have one or more chromosomes, often many of them, which are also coiled. Eukaryotic chromosomes are linear, that is to say that each chromosome has 2 ends.
Okay, so I think that's kind of enough for you guys to get an idea of what I do. But this style of video takes a long time, and I think most of you probably don't have that much time to spend on like each lecture, especially if you're science faculty, because as you guys know, we're very content-heavy courses. But you can still do this, what I'm showing you here, without the script writing and the storyboarding and lots of time investment. Just won't be quite as polished. So so I'll get to those questions in a second. So let me take these one by one. Let's see, how to break up the material into appropriate sized chunks. I mean, this is sort of a pedagogy question because teaching by video is not necessarily going to hold their attention, I think, more or less than an in-person lecture. So what I try to do in my in-person class as well as in my lectures is try to break up the material into 10 to 20 minute chunks. And I'll have the students answer a question or a couple of questions between those chunks. In the parlance of pedagogy, I think it's called a change-up. Some of you may have heard that. But you can do the same thing with videos. The nice thing with videos is you can make a 10 to 20 minute video, and then on the next web page, if you're designing a course, just have them answer some questions. If you're doing it live, you can do this as well. You can just pause the Zoom session or however you're presenting your material and just take some questions or even post some of your own. So for me, anywhere between 5 to 20 minutes, I think is a good chunk. Does that answer your question, Paul? You might have to unmute your mic. Okay, cool. All right. So, let's see here. Next one is how to create a professional looking video. I don't recommend that you do, because I don't think you'll have time before the fall semester, unless you're already pretty well versed in video editing and audio, visual, screen recording, screencasting. It's going to get really hard to get that like professional look. But I'm of the opinion that it doesn't really matter that much for learning. to be honest with you. As long as the material is presented in a coherent way at a good pace, and as long as students get plenty of opportunity, get enough opportunity for formative assessment, learning from their mistakes, I think that you don't need a shiny looking video. That being said, there are definitely some easy things you can do to polish your video. And I think I'll get to those when I talk about screencasting itself. So I'll table that for now. Just some general ideas that you can share with faculty. It's Tom's question, and best tools for making videos. These all sort of fall into one thing for me. So what I'm going to show you guys is a program, and I'm actually having a, let me see if I can share my iPad here. Oh, looks like it's going to work. Okay, good stuff. All right, so hopefully I think you guys see that iPad. Fortunately, it's doing it in the vertical orientation, but that's okay. So I use a program called Explain Everything. And it's not free. It's like $25, I think, for the academic version. That's not too expensive as far as these things go. There are some free ones out there as well. This is what you would call a screencasting program. And I use a Mac system, but there are cognate programs, similar programs for PCs as well. The reason I use this, and the reason I do use a Mac, is because I like to use my iPad to actually produce these. So I'm going to open this program, and you're seeing here, and I'm actually just going to open a new page. I'm actually editing one of the screencasts I'm doing at the moment. You can see that this is a pretty sophisticated piece of software. You can, down here is the audio recording, and you can insert video things and even draw as you go. So I'm actually going to just do this. So in everything in the red line is what your students are going to see. And it's basically you just draw, right? Like today we're going to talk about Mendel, and Mendel was making some crosses, and if you press the record button down here, see I'm now recording my voice, and I can write as I talk. So to determine the probability of a certain offspring, having a certain genotype, you can make a Punnett square, so on and so forth. And my voice is being recorded as I'm drawing this, okay? And what I do is I record these, and then I edit it using a video editor, audio and video editor programs. I don't recommend you do that if you're trying to convert your entire course to these videos by the fall. What I just recommend is use all PowerPoint, all drawing like this, or some mix in between. Okay, so there's similar ones as well. These are called screencasting programs, if you're looking for what they're called. You can also usually insert images, right? So I'm going to insert, some animations or something like that, and you can insert them live as you give your video lecture, or you can record it and pause the video and then insert, your media there. And your media can either be video or pictures. You can also open web browsers in this, which is kind of useful sometimes to play videos from the internet. So again, the program is Explain Everything, and I recommend just giving your lecture as you normally would, because that's probably what you're comfortable doing right now anyway, and just giving your lecture basically to this screencasting program. So I think that probably answers a few of the questions. Now, I don't recommend making long videos. I recommend breaking the videos, like I said, into between like 5 and 20-minute chunks. Of course, there are going to be exceptions to that given the nature of your subject and the complexity of your area and what class you're teaching. So, use your own judgment for that as well. So I think screencasting programs are probably the best tools available for making videos. Let's see here. Chris Martin asks, by the way, are faculty use Kaltura as a default? I'm actually not familiar with that. I only got into this game sort of a year and a half ago. How to avoid having to edit the video. I wouldn't say you don't have to edit the video to begin with, just like you wouldn't normally edit your there is a few things that you can do, and I've been recording this whole time. There are a few things you can do to, take out the ands and ums if you want. For example, in this program, I'm going to just select this area, start selection, delete that, right? Delete and compact. So you can delete certain parts of your presentation. And you guys are hearing my daughter in the background, artifact of working from home, guys. I'm sure you're familiar. Okay. Did anyone have any more specific questions on editing? Oh, no, it's my connection. Sorry, guys. Audio now. Just, it was okay, guys. Okay, that should fix it. Is my audio okay now? Can somebody let me know?
Yeah, it sounds good to me.
Okay, so did you miss what I said about editing?
No, we got everything. It just slowed for a second, but you should be.
Oh, all right, great. Any other specific questions on video editing? There are video editing software programs out there, and you can definitely learn to use them. I use Audacity. I use a combination of Audacity, which is a free audio editing software, very, very powerful. And I use Camtasia to edit both audio and video. That's the main one I use. That cost me about $100. I think I got it on sale through an academic license. I use my professional development funds for that. And the iPad itself cost about $1,000 with everything I needed on it. So, but you don't need like a special iPad or anything. Any tablet will do. And you can even do this with lower tech than that. You could even set up an iPhone and just shoot video from your iPhone and just write on a piece of paper as you record. I think that's a perfectly fine way to do this. In fact, that's how I started out actually doing this before I, started investing money into my process. So for example, like you could, all you need is your iPad or your iPhone or whatever, smartphone you have. And you basically just need it facing down like this, right? And the video bit is here, right? Happens to be on top on this phone. And so you just need like a platform to hold your phone like this. And then you put your piece of paper under it like this. This is, and then you just write on it and speak. So it's just like using a dot cam in, in a normal lecture. The drawback of this approach, of course, is that you can't use other media. You can't insert images or videos or anything like that. So if you want to do something like that, I recommend using some kind of screencasting program. Okay. So other questions, let's see. Do I use a whiteboard for this? This is basically like a whiteboard program. So Kathy, your question, do you use a whiteboard for this? Could you elaborate on that? I'm not sure what you mean. Like, do you mean, do I use a whiteboard for the, my videos? Yeah, it is a whiteboard app, definitely. Okay, yeah, that answers your question. Yeah, certainly. They're called whiteboard apps, screencasting apps. The one I use is sort of a whiteboard app on steroids because you can use, you can insert videos into it and narrate during the video. You can insert any kind of media you can imagine and, use that. Okay, yeah, and there's plenty of great websites for this too. Thanks, Kathy. Whiteboard.fi is one. there are others as well. And many of them, you can also record your audio as you're drawing. The reason I like either the piece of paper or the iPad is that I find that drawing with my hand is much more smooth than me trying to draw with a mouse. Maybe some of you guys are better at that. I know Sal Khan does it from Khan Academy. I don't know how he does it, but I prefer to write. So I use an Apple Pencil with my iPad, but a pencil and paper works great, obviously, as well. Any other questions on the whiteboard apps or video editing before we move on? Okay. Let's see. David, hey, what's up, David? Chris, any way to load a PDF and use that as a background when you write instead of starting with a blank page? In Explain Everything, yes, definitely. All you have to do is insert, and I'm not going to go back to my iPad, but, or actually I will. Let's do that. So, let's see here. Let me share once again. Give me a moment here. I have to reestablish the link every time. It's a bit annoying. Okay. Okay, 1 second, guys. Actually, I won't bother taking up too much time with this. But yeah, David, you can simply just insert a large piece of media that can be a PDF and draw on top of that even if you want to. And of course, the low-tech version of that would just be printing out the PDF, putting it below your iPhone if you want to record that way and just drawing on that. So yeah, that's certainly doable. Okay, let's see, what else? Basics on video to teach science material that will encourage learning. That's a big question. Thanks, Tim, for that one. That's a really, really big question. Entire books have been written on this. Let me think here. I think the biggest risk of teaching science or any subject by video is that your learner, your student, is too passive. Okay, you need a way to keep them engaged, and this also enters into the realm of course design a little bit, because you also need a way to make sure they do it. Now, some LMSs like Canvas, I'm not sure if Blackboard can do this, can actually tell you whether a student has viewed a video and how much they have viewed it. Now, you can't, it won't tell you if they are listening to music while viewing your video or not actually looking at the screen, but it will tell you if their video has been played on their device. So that's helpful. But what I recommend, if you're going to use these videos, especially asynchronously, if you're not going to require them to view them at a given time, which I don't do, and there are debates on that, you need to have some way to make sure they watch the video. What I am going to use in my future course is a learning guide, and I will show you that. And it's basically the videos without the things filled in. So I have a couple of learning guide questions at the end of each video, which I'll show you real quick. They just look like this, okay? So this is bad practice, bad video meeting practice, but actually that's not showing up. But they're basically just questions at the end of each video that they have to fill in. And I will have students just take a picture and literally send me the picture of the questions that are answered. And the questions come directly from the video. Oh, that leads to another thing. I don't recommend asking students to type answers. It's just too easy for them to copy and paste. So I have students handwrite their answers, take a picture with their phone, and then upload it to, I use Canvas as my LMS. And that's actually been working pretty well. and it worked pretty well in the spring when we all jumped to online. There was only a couple of students that had trouble uploading to Canvas, and I just had those students email me their images instead. So that worked pretty well. But you have to have some way to make sure that they actually watch the videos. Setting up online questions can be good too, multiple choice, things like that, but that takes a lot of time on your part. And with the time crunch, I'm not sure I recommend investing too much time in that at this point. Let's see. Oh, and I also recommend, incentivizing actually watching those videos and answering those questions based on those videos. So I award some points, not a lot, just for watching the video, and a few more, not a lot, just for answering the questions based on the video. And I make those questions easy. We're looking for like low Bloom level understanding, remembering, things like that. And then I sort of build on that later. But I also don't want the students to get discouraged while just watching the videos. I need to really get them to feel good while they're watching it, answering those, at least their initial questions, because it is going to be, a bit unusual for them. So that encourages them actually doing it. Basics of teaching science material that will encourage learning. Really, it's the same techniques that are, inform best practices for in-person learning. Spaced practice, varied practice. So formative assessment. These are all things you guys can look up if you're not familiar with them, but getting to the students to be assessed, be tested in different ways on the material. So for example, having them sketch a picture in addition to answering some multiple choice questions about a subject can be helpful. That's an example of varied practice, or learning something in different ways. Tim, any other specific questions on best practices for teaching science material using videos? Really, it's going to depend on your subject as well. I teach genetics, so I teach a lot of problem solving, but the way I present a video might be very different from someone teaching anatomy and physiology. That's going to be largely dependent probably on videos and pretty detailed and high resolution images that you're going to want to build into your video and sort of point to and remark upon as you do your lecture. Okay, so Ron Mono says, sorry for butchering your names, guys. Rushed into it mid-semester as far as online teaching. Yeah, welcome to the club. And simply recorded lectures using Panopto. Great program, can do a lot of the things that Can Explain Everything does. Do you feel this is okay, or should students be able to see you in the lectures also, rather than just my presentation materials? Great question. So let me just summarize the question. Should your face be on there in addition to the materials, or should it be just the materials, or should you switch back and forth between your face and the materials? This was a big question for me when I first started doing this. And so I started doing some reading on it, and it led me to cognitive load theory. And I highly recommend reading about this theory if you haven't already. It has greatly informed my teaching. But just to summarize it, it's basically what I've taken from the theory anyway. And I'm not a pedagogical expert. I'm a professor like most of you guys. It's useful to present your material in different ways. Audio, visual, haptic is nice. The learning styles have sort of gone out the window. That's not really considered valid anymore. As far as, I'm a visual learner, or I'm an audio learner, or haptic learner, that's not really true. But it is good for you to present content to your students in those three different formats. And the reason I like the screencast and the reason I think in-person lectures work very well is because you're presenting it in audio and visual format. Now, you can easily overload your learner. You can, so for example, if something is going on the screen and you're talking at the same time, if both of those things are too complicated, you're going to overload the brain of your learners. So the reason I'm bringing this up is because if your face is on the page at the same time that you're presenting the material, your student is going to want to look at two places at once. And I think that's not good. So I would recommend for that reason, just show your content. And what I do just to, as a sort of a compromise so that the students can actually see my face, is I make a talking head at the beginning of each lecture and at the end of each lecture. And the beginning, it basically says, okay, actually, I'll just give you an example right now of when I just, so here's would be an example of an introduction to one of my videos. And I would not show my face during the screencast to finally answer your question, Ron. Sorry if that was a verbose answer, but so here's an example of one of my talking heads. And I will actually memorize, I will actually like write a little script and memorize it and then talk it to the camera. That takes a little practice, but you can also just sort of read off it, it's okay. So here it goes, here's an intro. Hey everyone, in the last video, you looked at the details of how cell division is regulated, and we went through the 3 checkpoints of the cell cycle. Now, in the upcoming video, we'll look at the particular proteins that actually function in enforcing each checkpoint. And by the end of this video, you should have filled out the accompanying learning guide, as well as be able to answer the following 2 questions. And then from there, I'll actually write those 2 questions on the screencast. And so at the end, I'll do a similar talking head that, basically just summarized what they just learned and maybe preview what's going on in the next video. So, and each talking head video is, that I'll bookend my screencasts with is only 10 to 30 seconds long, really, really short. So you don't have to be a professional actor to do this, believe me. But it's a nice compromise because it is good for your students to see your face, I think, to make at least a little bit of a personal connection. I also strongly recommend holding virtual office hours. I didn't do that this semester, and I really regret it because my students really did. They were not comfortable posting in discussion boards, posting their questions. That really kind of was a failed part of my course. So I encourage you guys, if you haven't already, to do virtual office hours and just hang out in a Zoom meeting and just be available for your students. So I think I hit all the questions. Anything else you guys want to? We have some time left. I can talk about other things as well. Oh, so Paul asks, in that video you showed, did you write it out on your iPad? Yes, I did, but I wrote it before I started recording. So what I did was I opened 2 pages. One, I just wrote everything I was going to write on that entire page. On the second page, I recorded the audio. So I always record my audio and video separately, right? So the first page, I write everything I'm going to write. And on the second page, I lay down the audio. I basically just read off a script. And then I go back, and at each point in the audio, I insert what I've written on the previous page, okay? I'm not sure I recommend that most of you guys do that because it takes a lot of time. It takes me an entire week to make like 1 or 2 of these videos, and they're only 10 or 20 minutes long. So, and that's with like a teaching load. So it's really, really time consuming to do that. There's no way I could do it for my entire class before the fall semester hits. So I recommend instead for most of you guys to just do it live and just as you were doing your own lecture. And it's gonna feel weird. You're gonna feel uncomfortable. For me anyway, it felt like the first time I recorded a lecture, really, sorry about that, was the first time, it felt like the first time I was giving an in-person lecture. Like I was that nervous. It was really, really strange. Same thing for doing a talking head, talking into my camera, just like I'm talking to you guys right now. It definitely, for some people, probably more than others, it definitely takes some time to get used to. So don't worry if you suck at it right away. Like it doesn't matter. You'll have some time to practice, and we're all doing the best we can. This is a crisis situation. So don't expect perfection from yourself. I certainly don't. Anything else you guys would like me to talk about? Any other questions? Oh, the theory, that is a cognitive load theory. I'll type it in here. Cognitive load theory. Anything else, guys? I suppose I should find something to take up the rest of the time. Tracy, can you let me know how much time we have left?
That's one of the reasons that we switched as far as putting the closing before this. So it really is entirely up to, you and the group. Originally, we had planned for the breakouts to be about, 45 minutes to an hour, but we found that, especially at the end of the day, people tended to kind of lose some energy. So if you and the group have something that you want to, dig into deeper, you can keep going. If you want to say, hey, it's 3 o'clock and it's been, a very jam-packed day, you can also take people's names, emails, ask questions, and go from there. It's entirely up to you, in the group, of course.
Okay, so I'm gonna send my email to everyone, so you can feel free to email me with any other questions. Here is my email. There it is. And I am actually, right when COVID-19 started to come to Michigan, I was planning a workshop on teaching faculty how to do this kind of thing. That fell by the wayside, obviously, because it was an in-person workshop. I am very intensely working on my own videos right now, but I do hope to put that workshop together. It was going to be in the fall, but I'm going to try to do it this summer. So, please stay tuned for that, and I'll have Tracy or someone else send you guys an email and keep you updated with that, because I want to try to put something together for that as well before the fall, because obviously that's going to be when it's the most useful to you guys. I guess I'll just share a few other things I've learned in doing video production, because I knew nothing 2 years ago. If you do feel like this is something you want to keep doing, and I've sort of decided that this is going to be my main professional activity other than teaching, I recommend starting with a series of courses that edX presents, or that edX teaches. edX is a company, nonprofit, that offers MOOCs, massively online open courses. And the courses on video production and producing educational videos, and even a MOOC itself, those are free. And the first one is called edX 101. And that was the first one I did. And it has a lot of really, really excellent advice on how to produce the videos. Now, not all of it will be geared towards faculty. Some of it's geared towards, video editors. Some of it's geared towards administrators. But a lot of it is really relevant for teaching online, especially if you've never done it before, and especially if you find yourself doing video production and don't really know that much about it. Of course, I'm a resource as well. But if you want to look at free online courses and how to do this, edX will give you an introduction on sort of online course design, and Tracy is a great resource for that as well. She was my first resource for this. But if you want to learn more about video production, I think it's called VideoX is the course on edX, and that was free last time I checked as well. And that has a lot of really, really great tips in there too. So I recommend that. It's also geared for like non-video production experts, which I count myself as. Another question here, if you are doing the lectures classes live, is there a way the students can record the Zoom meeting? Would you think it's better to make the lectures available via Blackboard, etc.? Yeah, I think it's best to just record the lectures and throw them up on whatever LMS you're using, Blackboard, Canvas, whatever. They are going to be large video files. So what I found is that I actually had to ask my system administrator, which for me was Jackie Hughes, to expand my limits as terms of the size of the videos that I could post within my course website. So you may have to do that too. I'm not sure how it works on Blackboard. Your system administrator at whatever university you're at will be able to tell you about that. Oh, and Tracy, thanks for the link. That's exactly the one I used. But yeah, I recommend posting the video to your course. Another interesting tip that I got from a student is post an audio file of your lecture, just the audio file, so that they can listen to it, even if they're not able to look at a screen, like if they're outside working or something, or driving the car, or doing something like that. I thought that was a great idea, so I just wanted to share that with you guys. Just having the audio file by itself, so they can play it on their iPhone or something while they're taking a run or a walk or whatever. I thought that was a good one. So yeah, I would definitely make the lectures available. Just make sure that you have enough space to do it, and watch the quality too. If you find yourself recording anything higher than 1080p, you want to reduce the quality a little bit. Most LMSs like Canvas have an option to change to play with the quality as well as the playback speed. So just make sure that students are aware of that, because if the video is playing slow for them, they're going to get really frustrated. And you can record Zoom meetings as well. This one is being recorded too, so feel free to refer to this.
One thing that I've heard also from students that's helpful to them is when they are playing back your video, they can speed it up or slow it down. So that's another nice feature for especially people who want to just get through it. They can speed it up, or people who, especially when you're talking, like as Chris mentioned earlier with science, it's a really content dense subject. So they might want to even slow it down or keep stopping it at different points in time. So teaching your students to look for that, the setting is in their own device. So I usually just, point them there, and it's also in YouTube. Mm-hmm. And then as well, teaching them to use their phone as that second viewing screen. So when you've got their videos, if they can watch the video on their, phone while I've got their textbook open and their notebook, so they can be drawing, along with you while you're diagramming these different things. That's another just helpful way to help them access your learning through this video.
Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I just really liked how you emphasized that students are not looking for perfection in this, that even pacing, the organized content, the outline, those are critical. The bells and whistles, they're great, but they're still just bells and whistles.
Right, yeah, and to make sure that the students actually, because if you were teaching an in-person class, you would want them to take notes, right? Taking notes is great for learning. Everybody knows that. One advantage, actually, I feel that online videos have over lectures is that a student can just watch the video and just kind of absorb what's in there, and then they can go back and write down what's there. So what I do is I ask my students to just watch the video, and then I ask them to write everything I write, right, in their notebook. And what I give them is a learning guide. And the learning guide basically is a copy of the complete video lecture, all the pages with everything on there, with all the pictures and everything, minus everything I write, right? So if I write something, I want them to write it too. And I give them credit for filling that out, right? So I'll give them a couple of points for producing what is essentially an exact copy of my lecture, because we all know that writing something helps you learn it. I mean, and that's just another way of reinforcing the content through a different way rather than watching, because it's just too easy to be passive watching a video. But I definitely recommend strongly incentivizing your students to do that, because many of them will not do it otherwise. Any other questions, guys? Tracy, anything else you could think of?
No, but every time I hear you describe your teaching and the subject, I think one of the things to point out about how effective it is when someone like Chris takes the time, and all of you do this, I'm sure, in your own work. You know, again, he's got his thinking organized, he's got those images. As a non-biologist, being able to see him explain in that format, and then with the discussion guide as he's talking about, I look at that and I think, wow, I'm going to go back and take some more science classes because I really enjoy science. I just experienced some different teaching, and the way he's got it broken down, it really does make his learning available to non-science majors. So I absolutely, anything that you can take away from what Chris has shared, or that you could share with each other from your own experiences, because I see Tim Vanderlaan here, and I know he's used videos with some of his students where they created them. I recommend doing that just as Chris described. It really is that entry point for your students. And that's all I've got. Chris, you just did a phenomenal job.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, and thanks for tuning in. And if I'm going to leave you with anything, don't start from scratch. Just try your best to, as close as you can, use what you have already, because that's, you know, I see a lot of you guys are veteran teachers. And, you know, there's no need to reinvent the wheel. Like, make it as close to your lectures as possible, because not only do you already know that's pretty effective, but you're going to be much more comfortable presenting the content that way, and it's going to come across that way. And it's just going to put the students more at ease in learning when they're viewing the videos. It's also going to make them feel like they're actually viewing a normal lecture. So the more that you can make this normal for them, and also I highly recommend like the handwritten homework, because again, that's something that they're already comfortable with. And as much as you can keep as many aspects of in-person learning as you can, I think the better. And at least under these crises conditions, you know, we're not like looking for the perfectly optimized, like blended learning experience here. We're just trying to do the best we can with short notice. So thanks again, everybody, for tuning in. Thanks to Tracy and the organizers for setting this up. And like I said, just shoot me an email if you have other questions. I'll be happy to get into it with all of you. And if there are enough questions, I might actually, you know, do another one of these. Doesn't have to be in the context of a conference or anything, but I'm here for whatever you guys want to know.
Thank you, Chris. Again, this has just been great, and I appreciate everyone even staying on and participating and asking great questions up to, you know, the very end. I know summer semester starts soon for some of you, and fall is coming up. And as Chris said, reach out. Don't start from scratch. Reach out.
Yeah, work with what you got, because you guys already know what you're doing.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
All right, take care, everyone.
Yep. Take care. The link will probably remain open for a little bit. I think probably till 3:30 in case anyone stays in. Otherwise, most of us will be checking out. So have a great start to your summer semester.